All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about the concept of Shen, which is the third treasure. And again, this is not separate from the first two. They all are interrelated. And I guess the first thing that we need to understand is that Shen is not spiritual. Shen is not spirit. It's nothing to do with it. But it does actually in certain contexts. But within this context, and in the context of Chinese medicine, it doesn't mean spirit. And this is oftentimes why people will get real googly-eyed and glaze over and get aroused. It's like, oh, Chinese medicine, spiritual. They have the Shen. They have our heart, which is like our soul, which is like our true self and our highest expression. It's just like self-help, and it's just like New Age philosophy. It isn't. It isn't at all, actually. Because Chinese medicine and Chinese philosophy doesn't give a shit about your highest self or your highest expression. There's a quote from the Tao Te Ching which says that the Tao treats people like straw dogs, which basically, there's a bit more to it, but basically what it's saying is that if you're a person and you go off of your Ming too far, you'll just be killed. The Tao won't give a shit. The Tao isn't God. The Tao isn't some divine being, but it's just pointing to a deeper underlying mechanism of reality that they discovered through thousands of years of research. So that's why we kind of have to set our idealisms and our vague, like, wishful thinking and googly-eyedness aside a little bit and try to understand maybe more what they mean, or more what, like, I mean or someone else means when they're trying to explain a bit more what this is actually referring to. So Shen is not spirit or spiritual, although it can be, but we'll get to that. But I would say for most people, in the vast majority of their life, they will not contact the actual spiritual aspect of it, because there's a crystal clear sign and process that one goes through when that happens that pretty much no one goes through. And I guess I'll talk about how that relates to meditation, another favorite buzzword. So Shen is not spiritual, but at the same time we have this concept of the Wu Shen, which just basically means 5 spirits. So what people have done is like, oh, the 5 spirits, it's like his spiritual nature of ourself. Well, no, but we'll come back to that. So what does Shen actually mean in this context? Well, mostly what they mean is the quality of your mind, of your conscious awareness, of your intellect. That's more so what they mean and closer to the point. So if someone's Shen is weak and dull, they'll be kind of like dull and stupid and like, what? Like, you're like, they're like, what? What happened? Or you could say someone is Shen disturbed. That's like mild psychosis, meaning the quality of their mind and their nerves and their sense of self is really disturbed. Because the Shen relates to what we would say like mind, intellect, sense of self, conscious awareness, but actually in their view, that's all associated with the heart and what they call the Shen, or the Xin. Because we think we're up here, because that's our cultural bias. Whereas pretty much all the other cultures, all the Asian cultures, at least Chinese philosophy says we're here. This is our sense of self. This is actually where that resides. And they call that the Shen, or Shin, Xin, and talked about how it relates to the Xing, or the fire. We talked earlier about the Ming and the Jing, and how that's more lower base of the body. You could call that water. This is water area. This is like fire area. So fire has its own qualities to be healthy. Water has its own qualities to be healthy. So yeah, we would associate the sense of self here. They're saying it's more here. So this has a huge interrelationship with the quality of our blood. And to be honest, it's almost shocking to, well, at least for me, when, like, as I got deeper and deeper into training internal arts, I started to literally feel my blood flow and the quality of my blood flow and my circulation all throughout my body. And then I started to become really aware of how my mind and the state of my mind was affecting that blood flow, how my sleep, how my movement, how my food intake was affecting the quality of my blood flow. I mention this because tons of people have no conceptual awareness of this whatsoever. And it's my opinion that most people don't feel their body at all. Like, I'll see people doing things and I'm watching and I'm like, they have no clue that what they're doing is like creating negative effects in their body because they don't feel it. They're not in their body whatsoever. Well, that's a bit of a stretch. Well, they're not as sensitive to their body as they could be. Like, they're eating this food and I'm like, sure about that food? Oh yeah, I feel great. I don't know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, they're like mucousy and congested and literally getting inflamed while they're eating the food. And I'm like, well, you think this, but your body is actually doing this. Like, they're like, oh, it's fine. Okay. People have categorically cold hands and cold feet and all these cold patches all over their body. It's blood and chi, man. Blood and chi. So if our chi is flowing evenly throughout our body, then the blood will be there with it because they're kind of interrelated. And then, of course, there's a whole conversation of the quality of those things, which we talked about in the subject of Qi and Jing. So when we're talking about Shen, we're talking about the quality of our heart or the quality of our sense of self. This is another place where people get it wrong, and understandably so, and I did for many years. Is they're like, oh, well, the key is to think good thoughts or to be a good person or be nice or like follow these codified, generic, like homogenized models, and that's good. Well, if you're like an actual evil person, then yeah, that's probably better. But most people aren't. Most people are pretty good. Most people are generally just good people. So really what they're doing is shitting on themselves, denying all of their creative capacities, denying really responsibility or investment, and just trying to like jump on board with something else. Like, oh, I'll just do that because it's good. I mean, it's better than nothing, but at the same time, the quality of mind behind that is still a bit dull. It's still a bit disengaged and uninvolved. So for example, to illustrate this, a lot of internal arts, their basic foundational stages is just to be able to get your mind to completely soak through your body. To where if you imagined your body was this empty sponge and your mind was a fluid, the fluid of the mind soaks up and fills the entire sponge, and then the quality of the Shen goes way up, the quality of the blood goes way up, the quality of the Qi goes way up, your health goes way up, everything just kind of tends to improve. But it's really uncomfortable because prior to that, your mind has to be rearranged and cleansed of, let's say we would call it Xie Qi, which is pathogenic Qi, pathogenic information. So I guess it was this video where I said it was this video where I said, this philosophy doesn't give a shit about your higher self or your sense of importance or for you fulfilling like your highest good or following your bliss. It really doesn't. It's never been important, never been a part of the tradition whatsoever. This is all nonsense that people have added afterwards. Because basically, the idea is anything you can really know and be aware of isn't actually who you are. And there's, like I said, with Qi, there's the prenatal and the postnatal. Well, if this is kind of, the Shen is associated with our sense of self, there's another concept which we could call our acquired nature, and our congenital, or original, or after birth, pre-birth. So pretty much what we all know and what we all operate in, vast majority of the time, is the acquired self. That's just facts. So when people are like, oh, I'm being spiritual, I'm being this, I'm being that. Like I said in the earlier video, the one friend was like, oh, I don't know, this like journeying and processing and spiritual and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, no, because literally nothing changed in the actual functioning of your self and system. All they did was just take aspects of their acquired nature and like rearrange them. But ultimately, to illustrate the causal chain, they had this thing here and then they just like moved it around. And they're like, oh, wait, it's different now. I like healed it and I journeyed and I processed. Well, no, you're still just in this thing, and the same causal factor, the same knot of xie that motivated you to take that action in the first place is still there, and it's still motivating your actions. So literally nothing changed, except for your disembodied sense of self had some sense of satisfaction and pleasure from self-indulgently masturbating for however long you did. And then when people operate like this, the quality of their blood and qi just goes way down, and their ability to actually manifest and follow their jing and their life path goes way down. And from the view of this philosophy, that's just the natural functioning of all of us. If we just never really did much of anything, that's pretty much probably what we'll do. And this is kind of what these traditions and spiritual teachings actually were saying, but they're harsh and people don't like them because they want to say like, Chinese medicine's spiritual and I'm a healer, so I do Chinese medicine, and Chinese medicine doctors are like, they're like Jesus kind of, they're like Buddha, they're just here to like help and save people. There's literally no, that's not true. That's just your projection. These traditions are pretty harsh to us, but actually if you just listen and pay attention and follow the causal chains, you're just like, yeah, that's right. 2 + 2 is 4. 2 + 3 is 5. It kind of doesn't matter what we think or feel or hope about that. It pretty much just is. So the choice is, do we want 4 or do we want 5? It's up to us, I guess. So the purpose of a lot of these traditions was to get rid of this acquired self. So the acquired self usually manifests and has a big correlation with pathogenic qi or xie qi. So this was a whole school of medicine and thought, which is mostly gone now. And now Chinese medicine is just about like treating symptoms or like formalized prescriptions, like do this for headaches, do this for this. And really the deeper aspects are just completely gone. Because this can be hard work for people, because people are kind of so rigid and stuck and uptight that wanting to grow in a real way is generally not wanted. I don't know, for a better, or maybe it is because you're watching this course. So basically, xie qi, pathogenic information that gets stuck inside our body that keeps our mind from being able to soak through our body completely, like the sponge. That was the point of why I brought that up. So recapping, body like a sponge, mind like a fluid. The mind can soak all the way through the body and fill it up and stay there and stay just submerged in it. Then our health and all these things go way up. So the goal for many aspects of medicine and even internal arts is the removal of this xie qi. Because the reason why something is usually blocked and stagnant or in pain or whatever, xie qi. So people will say like, Qigong was a branch of Chinese medicine. True, because it was probably trying to purge and get this out of the body. Because it's related to the acquired nature, which we're functioning from the acquired nature pretty much all the time, but from the view of this system, the acquired nature is a disease, and is the source of a lot of our disease. Obviously, there's some things that are karmic, some things that are inherited, yes, but the vast majority of the time, it's from this. And even in modern times, the number one thing that makes people really sick, really stressed, and really fries them out is their own mind, is their own reaction to things. And then it's like you hit a metal piece of sheet metal and it just like vibrates and it's like, ah, but then it just keeps vibrating. And this is like the way people's nerves are functioning. It's just constantly that like jarring irritation. But it's a tricky thing because there's the underlying irritation and tension, But then people get clever and get into all types of whatever modalities, and they start moving and pushing it around. Whereas the key was, let's just get that out of the body. And then the health goes up, everyone feels better, and it's a lot simpler and easier. So that's a bit more of a bigger context of Shen, but it has a lot more to do with our sense of self, and as it's rooted in our heart, and the functioning of our blood and our Jing. Because again, the acquired nature and the nature of our mind, unless we actually do training and do training correctly, then they're not really going to really affect the blood and the Qi in a positive way, probably in a negative way, which is what I see a lot of people doing. I see people that are meditators. I can think of a lot of friends that I have that are short, medium, and long-term meditators. Their blood is really deficient, their Qi is really deficient, their body is like falling to bits, or their posture sucks, or negative things are happening, but they don't have the right view, so they don't know it. Their mind isn't able to soak through their body, so they don't know it. So that's kind of the benefit of Chinese medicine, is they have these cues to say, this is what's actually happening before physicality, so that we can start to address it before it gets too bad. So I said earlier, sometimes Shen can be spirit. So how this relates is, they saw the Shen in the heart as having the ability and the capacity to eventually, someday, actually experience something which would be like spirit, which would be Shen, the big spirit, the big S. But most people never get there because they are trapped in their acquired self, basically. They never actually move back towards the congenital self. They're so rife with Xie Qi and weak blood and weak Qi and weak Jing that this vibration would just rip them apart and kill them, probably here. They wouldn't, or they would just go psychotic because it would just, it's like you built a house, you put a shoddy electrical system in there and you just cranked as much voltage as you can through it. It's probably not going to end too well. And this is oftentimes what happens is people want to get into psychedelics, or they want to get into plant medicines, which some of them actually can start to help convert Jing to Qi, Qi to Shen. So people can get kind of higher rates of conversion with these substances. But the thing is, they have no quality of container, so usually it ends up just being nonsense, or they just become lifelong junkies, or they just become like NPCs, which means like non-playing characters, kind of a meme if you haven't heard of it. But it's basically just like you're in a video game and there's like an AI bot that you're talking to, all their responses are programmed, you pretty much know what they're going to say and do. Psychedelic people pretty much end up being like that, where it's like, you believe this, and this. Check. Your lifestyle is like this. Check. You're probably going to say this in response to this. Check. And you're just like, okay, so yeah. And it also usually harms their health over the long term because they didn't, actually do what traditions always did traditionally, which is preparation, foundation, organization, building the right qualities, having the right skill sets, and moving through a process in a linear way. Not just like, fuck it, man. Throw up the walls, throw in the electricity, and let's just crank up the electricity and just like see how much juice we can move through the system as quickly as possible. And at the same time, let's do it at Burning Man. Let's do it at a festival. That seems great. It'll be like a really spiritual experience. No, it's just literally pure delusion and hormonal depletion. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. But anyways, Shen can eventually be experienced as a blinding white light, which, depending on if someone has this particular religious belief, it will be like, usually it manifests as whatever that belief system is. But Taoism, again, is looking at the thing behind the thing. So for them, just blinding white light. And when I mean blinding white light, I mean blinding white light. And they said only after that point because you have the blinding white light, you have Shen, and then you're actually able to go into complete stillness. And then only at that point do you actually arrive at the point of being able to practice what is traditionally called meditation. Whereas what people are doing all the way up before that is either preparing for meditation or just wrestling with their acquired self and making themselves probably, a bit more calm, on the positive end, a bit more calm, more grounded, more aware, hopefully more self-awareness and honesty in these things. But on the other end, they make themselves just worse. If they can get more into denial, more into psychosis, more into Shen disturbance, more into Qi and blood deficiency, more into Qi stagnation, really just depends on how you do it. And it's really naive and ignorant and harmful to think, I'm doing meditation and yoga, so it's good. I mean, that's not true for pretty much anything. It's like, I'm drinking water, so that's good, right? I don't know, is it from the toilet? Is it from the gutter? Is it from the sink? Is it from a fresh spring? Is it from an actual clean, fresh spring? Is it from Flint, Michigan? I mean, there's a big spectrum of what could be. So the point is that there's a quality and there's a bunch of factors that go into it that usually determine if something is useful or beneficial or harmful. Not just, I'm doing it, so it's good, right? It's like, well, I guess breathing is pretty good, so you should probably do that. But anyways, hopefully this gives you a bigger idea and context of Shen. And I'll see you in the next video where we'll get into something a bit more tangible, which is elixirs.